Hot. And audio. Out. In. Oh. Hey. In. President, it's done.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Thank you very much, everybody. What a beautiful British day this is. And it really is. Your Majesties, members of the British delegation, friends, service members, and distinguished guests, welcome to the beautiful White House. Great honor to have you. Melania and I will never forget the spectacular honor Your Majesties showed us during our extraordinary visit to Windsor Castle last September. Now it is our tremendous privilege to host you, and you're going to have a wonderful short stay, but stay nevertheless. Then you're going over to Congress, and you're going to make a speech that's going to make everybody very envious of that beautiful accent of yours. Very elegant. He's a very elegant man. Here in the shadows of monuments to George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, honoring the British King might seem an ironic beginning to our celebration of 250 years of American independence, but in fact, no tribute could be more appropriate. Long before Americans had a nation or a constitution, we first had a culture, a character, and a creed. Before we ever proclaimed our independence, Americans carried within us the rarest of gifts, moral courage, and it came from a small but mighty kingdom from across the sea. For nearly 2 centuries before the Revolution, this land was settled and forged by men, women, who bore in their souls the blood and noble spirit of the British. Here on a wild and untamed continent, they set loose the ancient English love of liberty and the Great Britain's distinctive sense of glory, destiny, and pride. And that's what it is: glory, destiny, and pride. The American patriots who pledged their lives to independence in 1776 were the heirs to this majestic inheritance. Their veins ran with Anglo-Saxon courage. Their hearts beat with an English faith in standing firm for what is right, good, and true. In recent years, we've often heard it said that America is merely an idea, but the cause of freedom did not simply appear as an intellectual invention of 1776. The American founding was the culmination of hundreds of years of thought, struggle, sweat, blood, and sacrifice on both sides of the Atlantic. Fate drew a long arc from the meadow at Runnymede to the streets of Philadelphia that ran through the lives of people born and bred on the British code that no man should be denied either justice or right. American patriots today can sing "My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty," only because our colonial ancestors first sang "God Save the King." We see today a living symbol of this centuries-old bond, just a few dozen feet to the left where I stand. There, her late Majesty, Queen Elizabeth, an incredible woman who I had the privilege of getting to know. Queen Elizabeth II, very, very special woman who is very greatly missed on both sides of that mighty Atlantic. Long ago planted a young tree. It was a very young and beautiful tree, and look at it now. It's tripled in size and tripled in strength, very much as our nations have even more than tripled. Like our nation itself, it was laid with British hands but grew in American soil. Today it stands tall and proud, reaching ever higher. And this morning it reminds us that the mightiest of trees, like the greatest of nations, must be anchored by the strongest and deepest of roots. In the centuries since we won our independence, Americans have had no closer friends than the British. We share that same root. We speak the same language. We hold the same values. And together our warriors have defended the same extraordinary civilization under twin banners of red, white, and blue. My wonderful mother, Mary MacLeod, was born in Stornoway, Scotland, the Hebrides, and that's what they call very serious Scotland. There's no question about it. Some places they say, well, it wasn't really Scotland. The Hebrides, that's real serious Scotland. That's where they had their greatest of warriors, their greatest of warriors. She came to America at 19, met my incredible father. We loved him so much. We all loved him. We loved her. We loved him, Fred, and they were married for 63 years. And excuse me if you don't mind. That's a record we won't be able to match, darling. I'm sorry. Just not going to work out that way. We'll do well, but we're not going to do that well. 63 years. And my mother, I just see it so clearly. She loved, I told the king this, she loved the royal family. And she loved the Queen. And anytime the Queen was involved in a ceremony or anything, my mother would be glued to the television and she'd say, look, Donald, look how beautiful that is. She really did love the family, but I also remember her saying very clearly, Charles, look, young Charles, he's so cute. My mother had a crush on Charles. Can you believe it? Amazing how, I wonder what she's thinking right now. But beneath those beautiful flags, 8 decades ago, Prime Minister Winston Churchill and President Franklin Roosevelt famously met on a ship in the North Atlantic to outline a vision for the free world after World War II. That understanding of our nation's unique bond and role in history is the essence of our special relationship, and we hope it will always remain that way. The ship where the two great leaders met was called the Prince of Wales, the very title that His Majesty the King held longer than any other individual in British history, and he held it with great pride and respect. It's said that when Prime Minister Churchill first met this future king many decades ago, he was so impressed. He made the statement, he is so young to think so much and so well. And the bust of your great Prime Minister rests proudly again in the Oval Office. We're very proud to bring it back. We brought it back. Throughout His Majesty's life, the world has witnessed that same thoughtfulness which first struck Britain's greatest Prime Minister. His Majesty's intellect, passion, and devotion have been really a blessing to the British people. But not only to his own country, but to the cherished bond between the United States and the United Kingdom. And I am very certain that it will continue that way long into the future. In a few hours, His Majesty will stand in the heart of the United States Capitol as the very first British king ever to address a joint session of the United States Congress. So he's going to be addressing Congress, and I'm going to be watching. I was thinking of going, but they said, I don't know, that might be a step too far. I would love to go. It's not supposed to be protocol, but I would love to be with you. But there, the direct descendant of King George III will speak to the direct successor of the very body that gathered in Independence Hall on July 4th, 1776. If John Adams and George Washington or the King's fifth great-grandfather could see that sight, they might be absolutely shocked, but probably only for a moment. Surely they would be delighted that the wounds of war healed into the most cherished friendship. Think of that very, very long ago difficult war, and yet those wounds did indeed heal into the most cherished of friendships, most cherished. They would be moved beyond words to know that the soldiers who once called each other Redcoats and Yankees became the Tommies and the GIs who together saved the free world as brothers in arms and brothers in eternity, and nobody fought better together than us. If they could see us today, our ancestors would surely be filled with awe and pride that the Anglo-American Revolution in human freedom was never, ever extinguished, but carried forward across centuries, across oceans, and across history until it became a fire that lit the entire world. So today we look back on 250 years. Let us remember what has made our countries the two most exceptional nations the world has ever known. And together let us go forward with even stronger resolve to carry on our sacred devotion to liberty and to the traditions of excellence that have been our shared gift of all mankind. Your Majesties, thank you once again for making this important visit. We are so honored. May God forever bless the United Kingdom, Great Britain, and Northern Ireland, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise if you are able for the conclusion of the ceremony and departure of the official party.
We are here in the capital of Maine watching this in Augusta. What's that? Yeah, it does. A little bit. Yeah, we're gonna go out and do some reading. Yeah, I left my mat out here, so I don't want it to blow away. I left my sweatshirt thingy on it, so I guess it would have been okay. Yeah, we're gonna do some reading. I'm gonna pull it over here, though. I don't want this laptop directly in the sun because I'm surprised this thing is still working. How's that? Good, thank you. Now we're going to do some reading. We're going to continue one of our full reads, Comfort My People. I think we're on page 7 or 6. I'll just start on page 6. There was, after all, a general feeling that the priest was unavailable, an adaptable man, ready to grab his bags and shift from parish to parish in resolute obedience. This was part of the reason that he was so admired. If these changes were a natural part of his clerical life, he did not need a supportive set of social relationships that transcended parish boundaries and outlasted tours of duty at various rectories. These he found in large measure with his brother priests or with his family, but his family, despite the durability of many Irish and German mothers, gradually changed as the priest grew older. He needed some sense of identity with his comrades, and this was achieved within the ranks of the priesthood itself. Indeed, camaraderie, priest, indeed, camaraderie, thank you, camaraderie, indeed, yeah, whatever, camaraderie, priests, has a great characteristic of clerical gatherings, even to this day. What I am saying is that for a whole series of reasons, a well-knit clerical culture developed with American Catholicism. It was rewarded by the respect of this larger context as if it was supported by it financially. The priesthood took on many aspects of caste life and reinforced itself in this position through the nature of seminary training and the conditions of rectory life. Now I lost my spot. The well-behaved clerical of rectory life, the well-behaved cleric, belonged to a fraternity of priests. Yes, I got it, thank you. And was comfortable among them. He received much personal support in this inner world and moved away from it at his own peril. The tightness of the Catholic and clerical worlds explains the traditional overreaction to any young man who left either the seminary or the priesthood. The ex-seminarian had sinned against tribal unity and was eyed ever afterward somewhat suspiciously as a spoiled priest, forbidden often by explicit rule to write to or to visit the seminary he had left. The priest who left the priesthood had let the team down, was a failure, a defector to some undefinable other word. These examples illustrate the psychological reaction of the group he had left behind. So strong were the bounds of loyalty and unity that anyone who violated them invited a vocabulary of invective to describe his action. There was, of course, a great deal that was healthy and strong in this Catholic culture. Few countries, even those traditionally Catholic, have seen the working class remain so loyal and generous to the faith. Few clergies can be as justifiably proud as their zeal and accomplishments as the American. The unfortunate but understandable excess of clericalism diminished, but did not destroy this tradition. Clericalism, at its worst, was and is the unthinking capitalization on the positions of trust and privilege accorded to priests. It is the irresponsible attitude that enables some priests and bishops to think of the church as their own possession and to assume embarrassingly defensive postures in relationship to the laity, as though the latter were Mohammedan hordes bent on the sack of Christendom. Right, so capitalization on the positions of trust and privilege. You can apply that to a lot of things. Anyone taking advantage of their positions within a State Department or school or law enforcement. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Clericalism is, curiously enough, a disease a man can suffer from and never can realize it. It is that strange infection that blurs a man's vision of reality so that he thinks that rights and privileges from clerical discounts, to getting parking tickets fixed are irrevocably his merely because he wears a Roman collar. He expects preferential treatment, that everything will be nice for father, even when he has not earned it by his labors, expecting respect just for wearing the badge, the collar, whatever it is. Right, the label of presidency of a business or a country. Yeah, exactly. It is the terrible affliction that allows a man to perform his duties carelessly and unprofessionally because he is insensitive to the needs and demands of his people. Clericalism is the exemption from the rules by which ordinary men must live. Thus, the clerical mind can fail to answer invitations and still show up at the last moment, forget to return phone calls and still be forgiven, fail to say thank you and still expect to be invited again. It is a subtle but fatal disease. It is against these and a similar host of impositions that anti-clerical feelings are directed. Priests with a larger sense of Christian values have always disowned the clerical mentality, that frame of mind that so naturally developed in the Catholic enclave, but the problem has been widespread nonetheless. What is happening in our time is the fragmentation of the Catholic world in the United States and the consequent crumbling of clerical culture. The Catholics of the United States are immigrants no longer. Neither are they so defensive, but their faith nor restricted in their opportunities for education and social development. The Catholics of the United States are immigrants no longer. Neither are they so defensive about their faith nor restricted in their opportunities for education and social advancement. They have broken out of the structure they needed so badly in more oppressive times. They are as well or better educated than the priest, and they no longer give him automatic adulation and respect. The inner world of the Catholic priesthood, the social structure of Roman-collared camaraderie, is disintegrating as these overall changes take place. The evidence for this is to be found everywhere. The monastic model of seminary training has faltered because the priests can no longer be prepared to live a separate and strangely self-centered kind of life. The possessive attitudes of the hierarchy which led bishops to look on the church as theirs is challenged by a new theology and a deepened grasp by the faithful that they are the people of God. The people are rapidly moving out of the shadow of this once effective authoritarianism into Christian posture of life, marked by greater independence in thought and judgment. Interestingly enough, they are not really interested in fighting the old authoritarianism. They are instead ignoring it. Authoritarianism ends up howling into the void because the numbers still sensitive to its strictures grow smaller every day. The structure of authoritarianism is no longer effective, even in the strictly political realm of church activity. Offering shelter to no one, it is collapsing. The authoritarian aspect of clerical culture necessarily collapses with it. The mode of relationship between priests and people is in need of radical revision because, while the authoritarian clerical culture crumbles, newer modes of relationship between priests and people have not been supplied. In fact, this is the source of much of the present stress. The older order is changing in reality, but the church has not yet readjusted itself to this fact in the realm of the life of the priest and the whole range of his dealings with his people. Older priests grew up in the now moribund clerical culture, so its dissolution is destroying the old structures of life that they have ever known. All the familiar rites and practices of the priesthood, from hearing confessions to offering Mass, have been transformed within a few years. The style of spirituality that nourished them has been repudiated. They have found their prestige and security endangered by a seemingly new church that looks on them more as tolerable anachronisms than wise and useful elders. The priest, because of cultural changes, can no longer operate in relationship to his people from his former authoritative position or status. Everything Father says is no longer sacred. His faults are not easily excused, and the demands made on him are strongly personalistic. That is to say, his role as priest in the Catholic community no longer protectively covers his faults or inconsistencies. Neither does it obscure or cause him to suppress unique strengths and talents. His ministry, now examined with such active curiosity by so many different people, no longer centers on a set of tasks or duties faithfully to be fulfilled. It centers rather on himself and how he, as a Christian person who is a priest, can respond to any and all of the needs of the people. The incarnational emphasis on this era demands that he reveal himself in his work, that he gives to his people not answers or directions, but himself. This is obviously an awesome challenge since it in effect says to the priest, you cannot relate solely through ecclesiastical function, nor through a bygone tradition that made you the authority on everything. You are in many ways on your own as a human being among your fellow human beings. The younger clergy find this the kind of music which they like to hear. In an age that has strongly endorsed the dignity and meaning of the human person, they have little taste for many of the authoritarian and impersonal aspects of the now dissolving clerical culture. They are, however, still living in its structures because no others have been provided on any large scales as yet. This has an inhibiting and depressing effect on many of them, who find adjusting to the clerical life that has not yet caught up to the newer theology they learned in the seminary arduous indeed. They exhibit the discomfort in a variety of ways, some of them sullenly immature, some of them passionately committed to a new and better church. Many, for example, reject out of hand everything that has the slightest relationship to an earlier era of priestly existence. They will not wear clerical clothes. They will not be on time or show respect for experience. They have little reverence for the priests of the past. This annoys older clerics, and the younger ones know it. It is a real acting out of their rejection of the clerical culture I have described. An interesting footnote to this is the apparent disinterest many young priests have shown for joining associations of priests in their dioceses. The associations have not seemed, apparently, to seek the values which they are paramount, to seek the values which they think are paramount at this time in history. The reasons for this may be complicated, but one aspect of it is that most senates and associations have placed items regarding the security and status of the priest himself high on their agendas. This does not affect the young priest in the way that it does his elder colleagues. He sees the future, rightly or wrongly, in a more open fashion, and sees the present, has a time for a more personal and less tradition-bound exercise as the priesthood. There is a tension for the younger priests who have high personalist ideals because they find themselves somewhat frustrated by the still extant structures of previous era. Sure, yeah, like traditions, like one might have an emphasis, like, yeah, no, we have to make Santa cookies. We have to fly the flag at this time. We have to put up decorations. We have to have a cake. We have to write in all these conditions on love. It's just horrible. Anyways, there is, regardless, there is a tension for the younger priests who have high personalist ideals because they find themselves somewhat frustrated by the still extant structure of a previous era. For example, rectory life is not satisfying to them when they want to live more closely with the people. The priest's house seems to them a barrier, a fortress of sorts that prevents them from breaking through into a new and more flexible style of life. They feel intensely the need to be closer to those they are called to serve. They are not satisfied with the old principle that their closest friendship should be with their fellow priest. They urgently want closeness with others and feel that they cannot live healthily without this. Because the vestiges of clerical culture seem to make this difficult and at times even unacceptable as an ideal, they mistranslate the consequent tension into a desire for marriage. This native expectation that marriage will prove to be a solution for their problem is a sign that many of these young priests have not yet learned much about life and its vagaries. To them, however, it is a pressing difficulty. They want closeness with persons as part of their priesthood, and they value this far more than the task-oriented, status-centered priesthood represented by clerical culture. The end of celibacy seems to them the only possible way to introduce the deep human relationships which they want in their lives. Putting aside other aspects of the celibacy question, it is clear that unless newer and freer forms of priestly life are developed, the pressure of this issue will continue to mount. It is at least partially because the older clerical culture had such an attenuated and defensive attitude toward celibacy and closeness in all human relationships that the matter of celibacy is questioned deeply today. In an earlier stage in the American Church, the emphasis is seminary formation, and the code of priestly life was that the celibacy of priests was to be preserved at all costs. What is the purpose of penetration? It would probably be to make a baby, yeah. I mean, where does the actual, if you want to talk about having an orgasm. It's almost like massaging a muscle or a tissue and it starts to excrete something. Like for my eyes to cry tears, something has to happen, some kind of thought process, something has to make me sad or really laugh, right? Sometimes I could cry from something being really funny. Yeah, something getting in your eyes, exactly. Wow, that stings, or something that makes your eye water, right? The range quality of relationships was narrowed because of this. Animal spirits were to be worked off in athletics, and the clergyman world was the only arena for real friendship. Women were a threat to integral virginity and were to be kept at an extraordinarily safe distance. Incredibly, typical the retreat master advice of that time was an injunction, always to keep the vesting table between you and a woman. I have always been fascinated by the gymnastic strategy implicit in the sincere vesting tables. I have always been fascinated by the gymnastic strategy implicit in this, since most vesting tables are built against sacristy walls. In any case, a newer spirit sees this restrictive view of the possible range a celibate human relationship as unrealistic and unacceptable. The failure to explore the positive dimensions of celibacy as a state of healthy and open relationships with others has heightened rather than lessened the tension connected with it. Right, so then you're going into intimacy, which can cause feelings of confusion, jealousy. Yeah, they do this all the time. You ever see that with couples if they want to go get a massage? Right, if the man is talking to the wife, well, it better be a woman. They don't want a man. It's like, well, what if she's a lesbian? Right, I mean, so, yeah, these classes have gone on forever with those kind of discussions, and it just gets really stupid and old, doesn't it? Have you met the gynecologist? Women, I know, well, that's why over the years, people, they go into these occupations and then they can just have their friends, be their doctor and stuff, and then you have your circles of trusted source fields, right? I know, again, it can be like a badge just because you're in a certain loop or group. They give this false sense of trust and security to it, and we don't go for that, and they don't like it, but that's okay. You're welcome. Yeah, to each their own. We're not trying to stop them or say anything's wrong with it. We're trying to help children that are being held hostage in the custody of sick, murderous pedophiles. Those are hostages of Hamas right here in Augusta, Maine. Oh, look, the Kennebec Explorer. Transportation services. This range and quality of relationship was narrowed because of this. Animal spirits were to be worked off in athletics, and the clergyman world was the only arena for real friendship. Women were a threat to integral virginity and were to be kept at an extraordinarily safe distance. Incredibly typical of the retreat master advice of that time was the injunction, always to keep the vesting table between you and a woman. I have always been fascinated by the gymnastic strategy implicit in this, since most vesting tables are built against sacristy walls, and in any case, a newer spirit sees this restrictive view of the possible range of celibate human relationships as unrealistic and unacceptable. The failure to explore the positive dimensions of celibacy as a state of healthy and open relationships with others has heightened rather than lessened the tension connected with it. It's important too, you teach people that if one is approaching someone and expects they're just going to be open to touching and massaging and sharing emotions, and they seem a little standoffish, to say to someone, what, are you shy, or, are you not right, to to push someone in those kind of situations, right? To tease someone. Oh, what are you, a fag? Right? You can get a little more in depth with it. What are you, a pussy? Huh? You don't want to walk near that cliff? That's all slippery? Play the balance game? While we shoot BBs at you? Right, so I mean, what are you, a pussy? Yeah, come on. Right, so many people have died with that kind of stupid bullshit. So when people do that kind of stuff and you call it out, like, knock it off. Yeah, don't do that to people. And then they're telling you to shut up. Like, mind your business. Right, I mean, it just gets old, doesn't it? There's a simple understanding there that you can block it off, that can cut it off before it even goes any further, and you can just enjoy life, and it's really beautiful, but carry on. I know that doesn't really help with your lawsuits of wanting to make money for people feeling offended and oppressed and defamed. Carry on. Anyways, the statement of the bishops of the United States on the question in November 1967 is a classic failure in pastoral psychology, framed in authoritarian tones, employing arguments far removed from the human condition. It succeeded in offending practically everyone, including many of the defenders of celibacy. What it failed to sense was that the celibacy discussion is a symptom of the massive cultural transition underway in the United States. Younger priests will shape a new style of service that will put them into more varied, independent, and closer relationships with their communities. The defensive posture of the older clerical culture is outmoded and painful as it is for the older generation who lived in it. The great dedication is being put aside. Right, exactly. So say someone might not want to play Crazy Eights with you. You ask them to play Crazy Eights, they say, no thanks, don't feel like it. Come on, please, what are you, a pussy? You a pansy? Right, they go down the list of names that might get you. Nope, didn't get them. Oh, you're no fun. You're a party pooper. Nope, they still don't want to play with you. In fact, yeah, I mean, they're walking further away, and now they're over there, and someone else says, hey, you want to play Crazy Eights? And they're like, hell yeah. Like, what the hell? Well, they know that person. They've been friends for a while. They got to play the rubber. Yeah, they have a tie, so they got to play the rubber from the day before. This person gets all offended, their favoritism, and then they want to like put all these rules in place where people can't play favoritisms, and it just gets old, and we got to get away from these Karens. Right, so we've been doing this our whole lives. This is nothing new. Boy and Girl Scouts, get with the program. Anyways, yeah, we're going to pause there. Let's see, we're on page 13. You're welcome. It really is a beautiful day. Temperature is perfect. Nice light breeze. It's warm and cool. It has warm and cool spots. It's really nice. Yeah, we'll do some more reading in a little bit. Probably make some lunch. You're welcome. Thank you. A nice view of the Capitol, beautiful weather. What more could you ask for, really? Mm-hmm.